program was recorded at the Apex International Convention and Expo in Las Vegas, Nevada. I am pleased to welcome Managing Editor Bob Bowman.
The challenges of demand management is our topic for today, and my guest is Janice Gullo, Lean Supply Chain Master and Black Belt at the DuPont Operations Center for Competency. Janice, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So we hear that the forecast is always wrong. What can we do to make it less wrong?
That's a great question. I get very frustrated sometimes when we think that we can't make it less wrong. There are a lot of inputs to the forecasting process, to the demand management process, and it can get very confusing for a business to try to manage all those inputs and the variability of each one. So the process that you use to collect the demand is really key. And so one of the things that we've been doing is trying to eliminate the waste in the process. It's a very data-intensive process. So when you go to look at your data, you want it to be exactly what you need. You want it to be at the right level. You want it to have no waste in it, no discontinued products, no obsolete products. You just really want to look at the data, collect it, and start to analyze it. And you want to have a single set of data for both demand, supply. You both want to use the same set of data. So that's one of the key things. We always say clean up your data so that it's right there for your answers. The second thing that I really think is important is to segment your product base. You can look at it as kind of an ABC. So you get, say, 80% of your revenue you could call your A priority products. And it's very interesting when you work this out, it'll only be about 20% of your items. So it's a very small segment of what you have to manage that represents a large value to your business. So what you can do, you take that segment and you focus all your resources on making that segment more accurate. Because it's less volume, because it's less work, salespeople are more inclined to actually go after those items. So what happens is you're actually improving the forecast accuracy of what's important to your business. So for instance, what would you want to do with those? Well, you want to make sure you could statistically forecast them if that's possible. If history isn't going to repeat itself, you want some input from the sales folks. You know, what do you see? Those might be the products you would want to build a collaborative relationship with the customers that buy them from us. So that would be another way to eliminate some of the variability. So as you continue to go on through that, you can see, okay, well, that's my A products, and naturally the business is going to say, yeah, but B and C, you know, the next two levels, do make up part of my business. It's not that you don't pay attention to them, it's that you manage them differently. You don't necessarily have to forecast them. You don't necessarily have to have a salesperson, focusing at the minute details of a product that's purchased once a year. So you want to have them really focus on the A products and then manage differently, maybe carry inventory for some of the C products because they're cheap to begin with. And then that makes it kind of easy. It makes it so that you're really focusing on what matters.
I'm interested in that you're applying this concept of lean to demand data flow. Usually the problem is couched in terms of we don't have enough data. You're talking about a situation where maybe we have too much or it's the wrong kind.
Yes.
So it's a whole different perspective, isn't it?
It is, and it is a dilemma. You're all of a sudden inundated with this data that needs to be managed quickly, and you need to make decisions based on it. Where do I need extra input? You know, where's the variability in this process? And so, yeah, we are kind of applying that lean concept, and I think the process could, really benefits from it from what we've seen.
So data. Is it all about the numbers? Is that the whole game?
I wish it was. It would be easier. It's all, but really, the data is only one part of it. As important as the data is, the assumptions behind the data are just as important. In fact, we like to say that we own the assumptions as much as we own the data. For instance, let me give you an example. If a product can be statistically forecastable, if statistics can give us a good error number, then what we can do is we can say that forecast, the assumption behind that forecast is that history will repeat itself in the future. That's what statistics really say. However, that's not exactly the case, and we've experienced over the last few years with the big recession that we're recovering from at the moment, that history doesn't always repeat itself. In fact, in many cases, we don't want it to. But what you would want to do then is say, okay, this is the history. What do we know differently? You know, especially on your priority products. You know, what do I know that's different? If history is going to repeat itself, great, I'll make that assumption. But if a salesperson knows a detail, say a company's going to build a new plant site and double its ordering process, that assumption is really key, and that needs to be held in the data. So we examine not only the numbers, but we examine the assumptions, and we hold those year over year each cycle, so that next year when that particular salesperson or customer comes in with that piece of information, we'll know what it did last year. So you're actually limiting a lot of variability that way. So, you know, you've segmented your products, you're paying attention to whether or not we can do anything with statistics, and then we're keeping the assumptions so that we can keep continually to remove some of the waste out of this process.
What if there is no history? What if it's a new product, or in the high-tech and apparel business where virtually everything is new by definition? What do you do then?
Well, that's when we really rely on the collaborative relationships with the customers, and those are key. I mean, bringing that information in and being able to match it with various patterns in history. A lot of the apparel industry, you can match the different demographics and really get those key figures to kind of help us out. But that's where you really do rely on the relationships with the customers and the salespeople relationships with the buyers that they actually deal with.
Do you find the CPFR collaborative planning, forecasting, and replenishment model to be of help in this?
Yes, I do. It's one of my favorite things to work in. I think that I've applied it several different times in businesses that I've worked in, and it just really, you don't do it with every customer, but for your key customers, it's a beautiful thing because you can actually move the push-pull interface, you know, to wherever it matters for that company. And it's a win-win for both. We've dropped inventory as a result of that and improved customer service level all the way through the chain.
So what do you do with a manager who wants the demand planning process to be perfect?
Okay, so perfection is kind of an interesting comment, and you will hear this a lot of times from the operations side, but technically it's really about continuous improvement. You know, if you have to measure your process. If you don't measure it, it's just practice. So you really need to understand. So it's about the continuous, the little improvements one by one, and you'll find that it'll really happen. The forecast error will drop almost as soon as you start to measure it, because people will, all of a sudden you're paying attention to it, and then you'll be able to find out what's really causing some of the errors, where the problems might be. So you have to measure. It's continuously improving the process.
People will know they're accountable, so maybe they'll do a better job of.
That would be good.
Yeah.
That would be good.
Well, there are so many inputs, though, to the demand management process. It's not just a question, I guess, of getting point-of-sale information and sending it upstream. So that being the case, what is the best way to execute a plan?
It is really a consensus process. It's really, you really need the consensus of sales and marketing. Sales and marketing own this plan. They own this process. And it's very important that they coordinate all the inputs, and they get a consensus among themselves, and then the continued consensus plan has to be handed off or worked on with the supply side. So in other words, what you do is you get one plan, which is the plan that they sell to on the sales and marketing side, and then the same plan is the plan that the manufacturing folks make to. So one plan, sell to, make to, and then your business, your profitability, the waste in your process is really eliminated, and your profitability goes up, your customer service levels go up, and just the real whole overall business of, you know, you're really moving forward and not wasting time. So it's really a good process.
Janice, thank you so much for offering these guidelines to a really effective demand management process.
Okay, thank you. It was a good opportunity.
I've been speaking with Janice Gullo of the DuPont Operations Center for Competency. Thank you very much for watching.